All right. Hello, everyone. Sorry for the little delay there. We're just getting ready to go, and our wonderful guest, Matt, is here, and we'll be bringing you up for this conversation. Wonderful conversation we'll be having on this lovely Monday and the beginning of November. I'm excited for everyone to be a part of this conversation. And before we do get into it, just wanted to go over some quick house rules. One, we will never discuss anything that is directly related to financial advice. And this is two, a very safe space. One, to make sure that everyone feels comfortable being able to join into the conversation. And if you do have any questions, we'll probably do that around the 30-minute mark or so. And last but not least, this is an area where we want to make sure that we're all adults in the room and have a insightful conversation. But if it's anything that's probably too controversial for a family dinner or too spicy that you don't want to bring up in front of your parents, then we probably won't bring that up here during the conversation. So we'll bring Matt up here. I'm trying to bring him on up. 1 second, folks. And as I do that, I do want to welcome some folks that are here: Richard, Gabrielle, Troy, Trisha, Pablo, Semyak, Yamar, Ronye. Sorry if I mispronounced your name there, and some other people that are tricking in. So just give me one moment and we'll get started here, folks. Thank y'all. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for your patience. And without further ado, here is Matt. So, Matt, welcome, and you're on mute right now. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you want to start off by doing a quick 30-second, 1 minute elevator pitch about who you are and the organization you represent, that'll be fantastic. And then we're going to kind of get going here and learn a little bit more about your incredible career and what you're up to. So, yeah, we're super psyched to have you.
Yeah, great, great. Thanks for having me. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you loud and clear. So thank you once again for joining. Just give folks here a little bit in the audience that may not be familiar with you and your role at Solana and this and Solana Foundation in general. So give us that 30-second, 1 minute elevator pitch, and then we'll get into it.
Yeah, great. So I've had kind of a long, windy career. Started off in early data science stuff with an economics background, but then just got more and more technical, which is relevant because I basically was part of Riot Games and we were expanding League of Legends all around the world. And as part of that, we ran into a lot of challenges across different distribution centers and esports and all these international challenges. And more I looked into it, there was this new emerging technology called blockchain that I thought solved a lot of them. And so some colleagues and I actually left Riot in 2017 to make a game distribution platform, kind of like Steam, but just generally just trying to be this open layer of buy once, play anywhere, and connecting all these disjoint communities around a lot of different platforms. And while I think that was on Ethereum, and I didn't think it was able to scale to the consumer adoption that we wanted, it did show me that it was solving a lot of issues. And so I started another company that was a direct-to-consumer hearing aid. Nothing to blockchain was my next company, and that's doing quite well. That's still going on. It's called Contra Labs.
Nice.
But when I was moving on from full-time operation of that, I went back into blockchain and just did just did an overview to see if it was ready for consumer adoption yet. And Solana just emerged as the clear, differentiated technology that could basically handle the business that I used to run. And I was excited to help other businesses help both learn about Solana, but also when they get there to have lower friction environment, and just develop the tooling, continue to compress the protocol. And that's kind of what Solana Foundation does. We are the facilitating entity of the ecosystem. We do architecture, fill in if there's a gap in some tooling or something else, we help finance and fill that. So that's kind of what I do here is to do that across all the technology things.
Lovely. I love that. I'm sure you're very busy. So, for those that may not be familiar with Solana, maybe if you only had 30 seconds or so to try to convince someone completely new to crypto why Solana matters, what would you say to them?
I think at the end of the day, it matters to the application builders the most if there is a type of product they want to build. that Solana just has the ability to scale and be connected to a broader ecosystem economy that makes really, really collaborative applications with, within that industry or even across industries. So if you want to do payments, you can be connected to not only just do payment rails, so something like remittance payments or something, but you can also be connected to a bunch of DePIN applications, meme coin trading, games, across, loyalty programs. So I think that having a diverse economy and, that is a very attractive from the application builder. And then as a user, you just have a bunch of stuff, that you can use with just your keys and one smooth interface.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And for those that have not lived under a rock and have been, following anything about blockchain, I think that scalability is obviously a big part of the conversation. Now, I've been following some of your posts, and I know that one of the things that you had mentioned is that TPS, or transaction per speed, is one of those metrics that doesn't immediately describe a business case, right? But however, when combined with the ability to have transparency and transactions and flexible logic, replacing parts of the financial system becomes obvious. So that was something that you had mentioned. So why do you think that Solana's TPS numbers are more than just kind of like this technical flex, and how do you see that really impacting global industries kind of in the near future and then later on down the line?
I think there's a couple things. One, there's a lot of noise in the blockchain industry. There's a lot of things that are live and trading on open markets. So there's a lot of people who are incentivized to make you believe whatever. And I
Hmm.
think one of the differentiators with Solana is it's doing it live today with users, pressing buttons and AI and bots pressing, executing transactions. So you can just see it. Everybody can see the same data. It's not some sort of theoretical in a lab or some condensed environment and maybe to give a stat, Solana, on any given day will do more transactions than all other blockchains combined.
Wow.
So it is just, that's both a representation of the capacity of the chain and the demand on the chain. People just really like using it. So that's really kind of the bread and butter of it. But even beyond that, we do have some also just in test environments scaling even beyond what we have today. We have achieved like, I don't know, a couple hundred. I forget exactly. I posted on it, but like 40,000 TPS in a live environment, very very similar to mainnet type environment on our testnet, and then even greater than that in Fire Dancers, environments, and a lot of those changes are going to go to all the clients. So this gets really technical, but there's multiple clients that are coming out for Solana. That basically a client is what describes the protocol,
Yeah.
and some of them are really increasing the performance and spreading that innovation to the other clients. So it just rapidly, I think something that also separates Solana is just how rapidly it evolves, which just makes my job fun.
Yeah, I
It's
bet.
not like a static. I think anytime something happens with Solana, there's always, almost any protocol, there's somebody going to be like, oh, this is fundamentally flawed. See, I should told you or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think the reality is that Solana is one of the most rapidly evolving protocols, and it's not nearly like at its limits. There's at least a couple thousand x performance improvements. The goal is and always was like getting to 1 million TPS in one shared state, so you have a diverse economy that's interacting across the world.
I love that. And something else that is interesting, and one thing that I found is that a lot of the people with the least amount to offer often have the most to say, right? And
Mm.
Solana has faced its share of criticisms and things over the past. I mean, it's Solana is fundamentally capped. It won't be able to scale. It's a
Yeah.
flash in the pan meme coin ecosystem. Solana will be the next FTX. Yada yada yada. Right? You hear these kind of things. And was there ever a time where you doubted the project's success? And how did you and your team kind of push through those moments, even if you didn't have the doubt, or just kind of being able to go through all of that negativity and naysay?
I think anytime you're starting something new, there's multiple things that can kind of kill it. And I think there's definitely been some times where even though I was very confident in what we were building,
Hmm.
just sometimes it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy if nobody believes in it.
Yeah.
You need people to builders and users and builders to attract users and all that stuff. And if there's some stigma, it can become self-fulfilling, unfortunately. So there's certainly times where I thought there was a lot of risk that things would go south. It was kind of funny. So like the most acute moment, oddly enough, was one of the most acute moments that I was confident as well. It was weird dynamism. So it was actually about 2 years ago now, when FTX happened. Everybody just assumed Solana would die along with it because
Yeah.
they thought it was like a tighter association than there actually was. So certainly parts of the FTX umbrella contributed to the core protocol, and both them and the exchange housed some Solana. So certainly, just like. But that doesn't mean that they had any operational control. They didn't run validators. There wasn't like any sort of fundamental thing that they had on the protocol. But people just, didn't realize that, or, it can be very confusing at that time, especially because there's a lot of hysteria because that was a huge deal, right?
Yeah.
But just before that, like multiple competitors shipped that were supposed to light the world on fire. They'd come from big FANG companies, or they had just some unique architecture or whatever, but they shipped, and then Solana showed itself to still be way better than those. And I think so that was actually that's like a more fundamental thing in my opinion. Like, are you actually the most efficient architecture? Are you actually being able to serve your developers and unlock their product visions? Again, across payments, DeFi, all these other things. And so I in the time period that I ironically was the most vindicated of like, oh yeah, I am working on the right technology. The whole a huge part of the industry assumed that we were dead. So I think it was kind of good that happened at the same time, because if it would have been a more disjoint, it might have felt more dooming.
Yeah.
But I think we all internally was actually pretty calm. I got questions about this all the time. Like, how are you guys not like hair on fire all the time? It's like, well, I don't know. We're pretty confident about what we're building. Eventually it'll blow over, hopefully. And if it doesn't, then I don't know. Like, I think the thing you just have to have in any new industry, is, crypto included, is just some understanding of why you're getting up every morning and working on that, opposed to anything else. If you have like an understanding of that, it doesn't need to be religious conviction. It can be very practical. Like, that's what mine was. My practical thing is, you just need, like, it's beneficial for there to be a platform that connects everything and connects the world's, the more the world is moving digital, having a place that has the ability to connect all that and not having it be owned by one company. Like, why would Google own that? Why would Facebook own that? Why would, any one company own that? Have it just be owned by some new part of the internet layer is really powerful. And so I thought, it's a very practical thing. And so I just got up every morning working on that.
I love it. I love it. Now, building an ecosystem like Solana, I mean, that's continuous, constant innovation. Are there any kind of like recent projects or ideas that you've seen on the platform that make you think like, wow, this is the future, or this is just mind-boggling, even for someone like yourself that's immersed in technology?
It's funny. There's a lot of things I think that are just relatively new. Perps, kind of perpetual futures and stuff, came out of blockchain. One that I think is incredibly unique is futarchy. So it's actually from this paper from like the early 90s or something. But basically, you let markets decide decisions of a group. So you basically form it in blockchain terms. You kind of form it to a DAO, and then you have these kind of implicit votes where if the money is tilted one way or the other, then you do that thing.
Oh,
And so it's like basically a direct financial benefit, because if it passes, then you get it. If not, So it's called futarchy. So Metaprofit is his name on Twitter, who kind of runs the thing. And it's a very viable exploration, because some people have done some pretty interesting votes sometimes. Some other protocols are even moving toward it to do their DAO votes now. So they
nice.
vote like with their governance token. They use that as the thing to price set the decisions. So you get this more live view, and that's one of the things that blockchain does quite well. It's this, it's kind of this 24/7 cycle platform, that anybody can use around the world. It's not controlled by any one location or any one entity. So you have these constant decisions that are being decided by stuff. So I think that's a very interesting um, exploration. And I think maybe back up a little bit. I think that the main thing that blockchain gives you is this collaborative platform. It
Yes.
is anybody can kind of submit to it. And I think the place that you actually see it the most today is meme coins. I wouldn't say it's like the most aspirational version of it, but you see, Pump That Fun and Photon and all these other, launch pads or different takes on how to, do the initial distribution. And then there's also all the DeFi ecosystem where you can do trading of various, ways. And even Jupe is this aggregator of the um, different dexes that exist. So both AMMs, but also what are called central limit order books that look more like a centralized exchange or a NASDAQ and stuff. So,
I don't know if you can still hear me there, Matt. I think that your mic dropped out there for a second. We'll get Matt right back up here, folks. Thank you for your patience. This is a live show, so you got to be prepared for any and everything that happens. So give us a second and we'll be right back on, all right? I appreciate y'all.
okay, does that work? I think somebody stole
Yeah.
my
No,
microphone.
no worries.
Technology, I know a lot about it, I swear. As a
I was just saying that like live shows, I mean, this is episode number 60. Man, I can't believe it. So you're here for a very special episode. 60 of these episodes and these
hey,
conversations and we're here, but
awesome.
I've been surprised for every single one of them. Something interesting happens, but won't be the first time, it won't be the last time. But I know you were just kind of talking and wrapping up a point there, but one of the things that I wanted to talk about is that, meme coins do have this reputation for being like a very lighthearted thing. And obviously, there's the potential for people to make profit off of it, et cetera, right there. But what deeper role do you think that meme coins can play in like blockchain adoption?
Yeah, I think meme coins. I think they grab a lot of the same things that like a casino does or a lottery does. I actually heard the stat the other day that almost all of the gambling activity happens in person still. It almost all goes through,
Wow, huh?
Vegas, Macau. Yeah, yeah. So like the Draft Kings of the world, FanDuel, all those actually don't take as much of the market as people might think.
Huh.
I mean, they're growing industries a little bit, but yeah, most people still do it in person, and I think a lot of that's because of social reasons. At least that's what the article I was reading was trying to say. Um, and I think what meme coins does is it is a social thing. You're largely on, right on a social platform because like Pump That Fun allows you to stream, do all this other stuff, or just Twitter or your favorite social up here. So it's really interesting in that sense that basically what meme coins do, because you have this more open platform to do it on, and you have all these, like I said, I was saying earlier, you have all these like, collaborative apps that are interacting with it. There is no like singular house, so that
Yeah.
makes that everybody else can kind of find where is the social place to interact within my user base or whatever that is. Yeah, which I think is a really interesting concept. So I think there is some stickiness that I think would just once you get a like a viral loop or a sticky loop that has some social elements, that's that's like a really good thing for any sort of industry, like ecosystem or industry. Yeah, so like whether that gets more and more adoption, exactly how I don't know, but that's the thing is you have multiple entities that have and multiple businesses that have interest in finding new users to welcome to their whatever their application is. So I think that's like a pretty awesome concept actually. Yeah, and I don't get me wrong, I think the way meme coins exist exactly today will have to evolve to be more and more compelling, and there's a lot of competitions for people's attention out there
Yeah,
in
yeah.
the world. But I do think it's a very valid one. I think it's interesting to see what happens. You just have mind, I don't know, whatever it is, like a mind share speculation economy that a bunch of people get to contribute to. It's interesting.
I mean, I think the fact is just it's fascinating because, like you mentioned, there just are so many people contributing to the outcome of something, right?
Yeah.
Now, tell us a little bit about Breakpoint. Changing gears a little bit here.
Mm,
I
sure.
wanted just to, for everyone that may not be familiar in the audience or that tune into the episode later on for the when we upload this full version here, but tell us what Breakpoint is first and foremost, and then the second part of that is was there one type of conversation or interaction from Breakpoint this year that you can't stop thinking about, and why does it resonate with you?
Well, that's a good question. So Breakpoint is Solana's yearly conference. We have intermediate little mini conferences around the world. We call them hacker houses. They're not houses. They're usually in, in normal conference centers as well, or just basically they are for dev networking, but they're like lighter weight events. And but yeah, Breakpoint is the big one where we do much more advanced programming and get our advanced team involved and stuff. We might actually have like a separate one this year, but that's spoiler alert alpha. Yeah, but we'll might have one mid-year this year
Nice.
because the next one isn't going to be all the way until December of next year. Just the way that the programming worked out, it's going to be in Abu Dhabi, so we might do something, and that's going to be pretty because of the last breakpoint was a little over a month ago now, so it's going to be about 14, 15 months in between them. So we might do one in between this year. Yeah. So that's like the it is a chance for both all across the ecosystem, from the core devs, highly technical, describing the protocol, that kind of deep thing that no user would ever touch directly, all the way up to the application layer and
Nice.
even fan events and stuff. So it's like a really interesting event where everybody's kind of together. There's actually not that many side events either, because it's kind of this our events team does a great job. I don't know if you ever met like come across Ellie, but she's great. So she does a way of like kind of integrating what would be side events into the conference itself.
I love
So
that.
that either there'll be lounges or little spaces that you can kind of rent out within the same shared space. So it actually becomes much more connected, which is hilarious. People kind of liken it to the actual chain itself, where we're like, like quote unquote monolithic, where it's like more connected and integrated with each other.
Yeah.
And so the conference kind of is a manifestation of that in a way. So
Nice.
it's great.
No, that's
Um,
awesome. And like, do you enjoy going to these conferences? I mean, is it an opportunity for you to connect with people in a different way? I mean, there's just so many things that you hear or that people kind of read about or misconceptions that they have. And what's
yeah.
that just like being able to, still interact in such a digital space with people face to face and being able to talk to people that are just fanatics about Solana, and then maybe even the people that, have their misconceptions or doubts, I mean, how's that been for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I think there's one level where I get to have whiteboarding sessions. I mean, we do like in the rooms in the back. Most people don't go to them, but like, there's open rooms where we're just whiteboarding about core protocol stuff. Um, yeah, so that's great for me too. Like that's actually where I spend most of my time at those things. But then, yeah, we do. It is a very good space where there's all this FUD about different people wanting to paint pictures of Solana being everything being fake, or there's no way it actually can have this much adoption or whatever. But if you go to the conference, people paid whatever $500 a ticket or whatever. It's real. Like there's thousands of people there.
Yeah.
The Breakpoint sold over a third of the tickets that Token 2049 sold. Like
Nice.
it's over a third of this, and that's just a really broad conference. So it is a very popular. There's a lot of users, and it sold out too. Like there's hundreds if not thousands more that, just what the venue is at capacity. So it's yeah, just a great place to kind of have realistic conversations about where we actually are, to whatever narrative, and you have real users and devs around to talk to.
And speaking about, real users and devs, I know that, one of the things that you had mentioned before is that the best way to get into Web3 is to do something in Web3. So,
Hmm.
what advice would you give to developers or other technical people who are interested in blockchain but are still a bit hesitant to make that leap?
Yeah, I think you hit it. Yeah, it is just building something. I think that you can demystify what a lot of this stuff is just by even just doing the most basic, you know, implementation of a transfer, and you get to understand what actual data is being represented, how what are you actually sending it to. Like even things like what is the blockchain is kind of this nebulous thing that most people don't necessarily understand. But once you start sending it, you're like, oh, I'm actually just sending it through, and then this thing routes it to just a system of computers. So there's a lot of those things start making more sense once you get your hands on with it, and encounter some hitches there for sure, and then understand why those hitches might exist, because it might be some thing about your understanding that was just a little bit off. So I think
Yeah.
that's the best. And then you can start thinking about, oh, what problems does this solve? I actually can send this from anywhere. All I need to do is generate some keys. All I need to just math, some random number generators essentially are the only thing I need to do to unlock my ability to transact on this network. Basically, you have to accrue some SOL to, it's Solana's native token to be able to pay the network. But I think that's like a really powerful concept where you're like, oh, I can understand why, if I'm, just some financial app, or without intermediaries, and I can spin up, you can execute a much more variety of strategies than you could on a completely centralized solution. Also, a lot of people think that more and more, machine to machine economy is going to move to this, because you don't have to spin up bank accounts, you don't have to spin up credit cards, all this stuff. Machines are really good at spinning up random numbers and then producing value and getting paid for it, like in an automatic way. Like, oh yeah, blockchain seems to make a lot of sense for that. So I think just starting to tinker and just seeing gives more understanding of why we're excited about these things. I think even for non-technical people, a lot of the initial documentation was pretty handholdy, especially with AI, ChatGPT, and Claude, and all these other developer-friendly things. You may not necessarily need to know explicitly how to code. It's called like prompt engineering. You may be able to just type in some prompts and you get pretty far with that. And you don't necessarily have to become a programmer eventually, but it does demystify what's going on under the hood if you want to be a product manager or designer or whatever for a crypto application.
Yeah, I think that, even if you're not technical, even just having a brief understanding conceptually of what technical people are doing, it's very beneficial to your career, especially, if you're
Yeah.
in marketing or just working with some of these other departments. I think that, it helps for sure. Definitely expands my curiosity about the technology for sure. And, thinking about that, what you were just mentioning, when it comes to being able just to see builders from around the world like showcase their different projects on Solana, like has there been anything in particular, maybe in the past or recently, that just made you feel especially proud to be a part of this?
Honestly, it happens kind of a lot. I think the one thing a lot of DPIN things that come out. So DPIN is decentralized physical infrastructure network, but you can kind of think of it as the gig economy, just done slightly differently. So it doesn't necessarily have to be physical, but like think of Uber. What did that unlocked? Don't get me wrong, there's some problems with their hiring practices and stuff, but it did unlock um, the ability for people just open up an app and then start driving and you know and get paid.
Yeah.
And I think especially as income disparities get higher and higher, um, and a lot of valuable things could be captured from what people do anyway. So just our human movement is kind of captured by Google, and they use it
Yes.
to get money to serve you ads, or you have internet and you have excess capacity, you could be serving it, or all these things that you could be doing anyway that actually add value to the world. Either people use that data today to give you an ad, or it just left wasted. And so I think largely that's why I get excited about it. Like, because I have this dashboard camera called Hive Mapper, and I just drive around and I choose to give that data to people, and they pay me for it. So there's not, and it's on Solana, and it's like basically paid for a thing I would do anyway. I drive. I don't drive a ton. I'm working from my cozy apartment now, but I drive enough that it makes a little bit of money, and it's meaningful at the margin. If
Yes.
yeah. So I think that is pretty exciting in putting more power into individuals to monetize things that they would be doing anyway, or maybe spend a little extra effort in their life to find like a little bit better data, or whatever it might be that these projects are giving them more options to
Yes.
um, do. I think that's a really fascinating concept.
I love that what you just mentioned, right? Just having additional options, right? Whether you can choose to or you opt out of it. I think that's really powerful. Shifting gears a little bit here and we're going to open it up to questions after this and then kind of change to little bit more funner part of the conversation here, wrapping it up because we're almost out of time, which is incredible how fast this has gone by. But
Mm.
what's the most challenging part of managing a blockchain ecosystem that's evolving so rapidly, and how do you then kind of adapt to the things that are unexpected?
Mm. I, actually, some of the biggest challenges are actually that I know we get a lot of flack for this. It was even on your the comments of your post about this on LinkedIn. It's just decentralization actually makes it really hard to do some things that would be simple otherwise.
Hmm.
You have, in order to do anything meaningful, you have to get the buy-in from hundreds, if not thousands, of very much individual entities. And even just a simple network upgrade you have to, post on multiple channels, get people that are kind of influential among the validator ecosystem to change it. We have this saying internally that blockchain isn't the absence of leaders, it's the abundance of them.
Ha.
So you have a lot of leaders out there that aren't us. We are just one of many, many, many influential things, and so we can kind of give guidance. Other people are even more influential than us in some ways, so um, that can make it hard because almost in a more like just a top down company, you just have a few a few top level people just
Yeah.
dictating what everybody else below them will do, and they pay them for it, obviously. And so that's like the structure, and that can be very efficient because nobody, people may ask some questions or whatever, but at the end of the day, that's typically the way a company runs. Whereas that
Yeah.
just isn't the way a blockchain will run. If the validators or whoever else doesn't want to adopt something, it just doesn't happen.
Yep.
No, there isn't really that same relationship at all. And this is actually happening right now. 2.0, the next iteration of the validator client is taking a little bit longer because people were just busy with other priorities or whatever, that they didn't adopt it as fast. So it's just slowing down release process. And so then typical, and this is just so maybe to back up a little bit. What happens is the core protocol devs, all they do is just ship code to an open repository. It's open source, everybody can view it or whatever, and that's all they do. the, to get it to run on the network, each individual operator has to update, their version and compile it and do all that stuff on their own side. Nobody forces them. There's no pushing it to the individual validators, nothing like that. And that process, requires several thousand people to do that. There's no way to force them to do that at all. So yeah, that can be a challenge when you want to do when you're trying to iterate as fast as possible, because then it's a burden on those people. Other protocols don't don't update nearly as frequently, so it's much easier for them just to kind of be lazier operators. But yeah, Solana is fairly demanding on that side. But but I don't know. It's a fun challenge though, because it does mean things are progressing.
I love that. Now, we are at that halfway point beyond it, actually. So, wanted just to open it up to folks in the audience. If you do have any questions for Matt, or if you just want to add in or chime in the conversation, feel free to raise your hand and we'll do our best to bring you up. Let's just keep the questions on topic to this conversation here, and obviously be respectful. We're open to different opinions, but let's kind of keep it at a certain level here, folks. So if anyone does have a question, feel free to raise your hand. If not, no worries. Continue to listen and absorb all of this incredible knowledge that Matt is so thankfully sharing here today. The question for me, and I know that this is kind of going a little bit more into some of the other things, but if there was something, if you could have policymakers understand just one thing about blockchain, what would it be and why?
Oh wow. Biggest policy thing. I mean, so the question is what they should understand,
Yeah,
basically.
or
If
what's
I could,
something that
yeah.
maybe like you think that policymakers overall have a misconception about, blockchain, and why what should they know about it that they probably just have misconceptions about?
Whew, there's okay, so many.
You choose
So
you choose your favorite.
yeah, maybe a little bit of background. I'm on the crypto ISAC. So that's how we interact. That's ISACs where is a general term across a bunch of industries that interface with public sectors. So I actually interface with a lot of three-letter agencies, politicians, their staffers, what have you. I think the biggest one, maybe I'll change this question a little bit. The one that seems to be the most important that's kind of changing
Yeah.
is the way that um, the government officials are viewing stablecoins.
Hmm.
Originally, they were concerned that blockchains were basically controlling the dollar. The dollar is one of the main ways that government has some level of power. They can both tax and they can issue new bills, and so they're worried that if blockchains could issue new dollar bills, then what is the government there? How does the
Ah.
government get their power?
Yeah.
But I think that's they're recognizing that's really not that much different than Turks and Caicos or Ecuador or all these one of these other countries that is adopting the dollar as their currency. All that's really happening is that same thing happened digitally. The quote unquote country or the economy of blockchain is taking in actual US dollars and putting them in bank accounts similar to any of these other countries. And that's good for the US dollar because it's demand. As you don't want, as the government prints more money, which they'll have to do, they're in debt, they, as they print more money, you want demand on that money, and cryptocurrency and blockchains are giving them that. And I think that's an incredibly powerful thing that they're seeing. It's actually way more collaborative and way more like just any other economy than it is this disruptive thing. Now, you can start making an argument against algorithmic stablecoins being a little bit more threat to the dollar, but that one actually I do think has some competitiveness. There's still the collaborativeness that the reserve current it's pinned to the reserve currency that is the US dollar that has some benefit even if there's not physical US dollars or like being locked up. But yeah, the certainly like the Circle, the USDTs, all those are just good demand on the US dollar.
Fantastic, fantastic. So, wanted just to kind of switch it up here for some things that are wrapping it up. If we are here and switch to some things that folks may not necessarily know about you. So, you've been in this space for gosh a while now, but back in the day. Oh, we have a question here, and I'll get to this question afterwards. But just kind of wanted to run to some fun stuff that people might not know about you. So I was checking out your profile, and you had started selling chocolate back in
Oh
2009,
yeah.
right? So here's just a completely off topic, fun question for you. What's your favorite type of chocolate?
Oh, that's great. I was just in grad school, and this was during the time of the recession, so we didn't have full funding for grad students, and so I just I worked on the side. It was the best job ever. It was actually really good because I did have to work. Don't get me wrong, but there was a decent amount of time. It was downtime. It was and so I would in between selling chocolate, which was a fun thing. I would still be able to study, and so it was a really blessing that I was able to get that job. But yeah, my favorite chocolate. I really like this. So the idea, similar to wines or coffees, you can have these. If you get it from a single origin, you can
Mm-hmm.
have taste profiles that are on the chocolate, just like anything else. So my favorite is actually Madagascar. It has this like fruity. I don't know if just everything about Madagascar is fruit, but or because there's so much fruit flying on the ground that it gets absorbed into the chocolate. But yeah, it definitely has some very noticeable fruity notes, and I find that very, very um, good. So basically, any chocolate from there is great. But I think one of my favorite is called Patrick, and it's a French, I think. But yeah, it's very good if you ever get the chance to have Madagascar chocolate.
Well, after this podcast, we're gonna see if the sales of Madagascar chocolate goes through the roof here.
I should,
So you
yeah,
might be
my
influencing the
expert
price of
opinion.
yeah of chocolate going up here. So we do have a couple of questions here. So Jamar, hopefully I did not mispronounce your name. And then we have Dorothy here. That's a longtime supporter of the show. So let's go first with is it Jamar or Yamar?
It's Jamar. Thanks, Trevor.
Oh, no worries, Jamar. So, what's your question here for us today?
Yeah, thanks for having me up, and thank you, Matt, for doing this as well. I wanted to know, we saw that you guys have kind of a legacy of really bringing new and disruptive technologies to the market. I'm a big fan of Solana, as far as like the way that you guys are making blockchain technology accessible. through consumer products. But I'm wondering, like, we saw the Solana Saga smartphone in
Mhm.
2022. I'm wondering, like, what's the next step for Solana? How do you guys take that further? And then how do you guys vet and validate potential partnerships for your ecosystem in that?
Okay, yeah, great. The next iteration is actually, I think, currently in pre-order. It's called Seeker. It was just announced at Breakpoint just a couple months ago, and it was kind of like there's a few other sales previous to that. I think the large. So I want to be clear though, this is an ecosystem. It's called Solana Mobile. They have like just as much brand rights as almost anybody else. Like there's not like some special entity. Anybody else can. There's also another phone called Jambo who's doing a Solana integration, and I think a few others. Totally jokes that there's more phones than layers. It's kind of a joke about other ecosystems that have a bunch of infrastructure layers, where Solana just has basically one and maybe a couple other network extensions or other L2s. But there's like 3 or 4 phone plays as well. And I think that the reality is, if you want to make it accessible around the world, that's just where the internet is going. It's going mobile. Even I was doing some loose analysis of this the other day, just with even the DeFi ecosystem. A lot of it happens through mobile. Now we don't have that data directly. Don't get me wrong. Like the chain itself just gets a bunch of signatures, so we don't even know exactly where they're coming from. But Phantom or individual application front ends can kind of show us this, and so they tell us sometimes. They just like donate that the data, but yeah, it's a lot of mobile. So we've definitely put more and more effort. Our effort tends to be at the foundation level, tends to be around tooling, making sure there's SDKs for iOS, Android, and other things like that. And then that's where like most of our like direct relationships and collaborations come from. But if you have an application and stuff, we definitely have like different, we call them verticals, but like different leads that will kind of manage that conversation. So yeah, if you're interested in collaborating with the Solana ecosystem, yeah, happy to. I don't take that offline, or my DMs are open.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
we're connected, so I'll definitely do.
Yeah, cool.
That's fantastic. Look at that collaboration live on the set here today. And then the next question is going to come from Dorothy. So, Dorothy, welcome. What's your question? How are you doing today?
Oh, thank you, Trevor, and thank you, Matt. I really appreciate what Sonata does because I received the airdrop instead of need to claim it. This is a big step, I would say, that in the crypto world. This is a compliment for Matt and the team. And my question is, I know that I have the Seeker phone coming, waiting for it. And then
Okay.
I know that Solana is working with Helium, and then to provide the mobile phone service, if I'm correct. I don't know whether
Yep.
I'm correct or not. And then
Yeah.
I have a question basically on compliance because I'm on the compliance. First, actually, the regulators all around the world now are watching cryptos, and then they want they want everybody to be regulated as long as you're a virtual currency provider. So the first question is Solana mobile phone seeker or the first phone seeker. I don't know if I remember the name correctly. Is
Mhm.
there any? Do you guys have any preparation if the regulators see that the phone is a virtual uh, currency provider? The second is usually for the mobile service, the government need regulations too. You need to have license to provide mobile phone service. So also about regulations, do you guys have something on hand to get ready, or do you already have license to different countries and that's it?
Good questions. I will give you the information that I know. I'm not super in tune to these areas. I know that a lot of just like Seeker and a lot of these other websites and stuff that are crypto websites, they don't hold any keys. They like the or so like the for the Seeker in particular, and for the Saga. So like both of the Solana mobile phones, they have a key store in the secure element, but the user completely owns that. So it's not like there's some service that Solana Mobile is running that handles any of that for the user. So that usually gets them outside of being like payment relay or merchant of record kind of regulations. But I'm not an expert in that, so I don't know exactly. The other question was, what was the other question? Was like regulation on
Helium, because
oh yeah, Helium, right?
yes,
So
because it will be a mobile service provider that usually in the most countries, basically every countries, you need a license
yes,
to provide uh, the phone service, mobile service.
correct.
So
Yeah.
so that's the question.
Yeah, it's a really good question. So actually, one of the things that they've started doing is working through the existing providers, and then the providers basically just aggregate them or whatever. So T-Mobile was the first that was made public. That T-Mobile actually runs a decent amount of their. They have an explicit service which is called Helium Mobile that is regulated in this way, and then they use T-Mobile. They collaborate with T-Mobile on it, so you can buy it through T-Mobile, or you could. The service just uses T-Mobile in the background when there isn't there isn't a Helium hotspot around. But then it also works the other way. Some of these carriers have just started using the Helium network to improve their service. So they pay Helium, but they already have all the regulation they need, and they service just like they would normally. So that's my understanding. I don't know exactly all the regulation and the things under the hood. I'm sure I'm hand waving a lot, but my sense is that they do have the regulations, and I know that that's part of why they tend to expand country by country. So Helium Mobile, for instance, started out just in the Miami area of Florida, the United States, and then have expanded, I think, kind of internationally. I think they got the help of T-Mobile to do that licensing, but I'm not entirely sure.
Oh, that is very smart. I do appreciate everything that you guys are really pioneer and smart. And thank you very much for your answer. I'm good.
Thank you, Dorothy, for such an amazing question and for joining in the conversation. If there are any other folks that have a question, we probably have time for one or two more here. But back to just kind of the fun elements. I know that not too long ago, I believe that you've crossed the realm of 10,000 followers, and when you kind of first started out, you were just doing it to, I guess, improve and practice writing and being able to talk about technical topics and things of that nature. So, how has your journey come along so far in being a technical voice in the blockchain space, and how has it been with you kind of getting your message across? And what's that reception been like? And how has it just been a growing process for you so far since you've started to kind of go wholeheartedly into that?
Yeah, it's definitely a learning experience. Content creation is fairly hard. Because you need to be consistent about it to actually grow a following. And there's certainly some weeks that I'm not even thinking about content creation, let alone do I feel like I have any answers to anything, because there's so many problems. So finding in those moments, still finding something that's mildly interesting, I think certainly has been a challenge. And because it's not my main thing, I have gone months without posting anything for sure. I think the reception is great, though. I think the benefits are very clear once you start getting enough people paying attention and stuff. You reach out to me, you have these great opportunities to collaborate with people that how would they know you, or how else would you have any sort of credibility with them otherwise? And so I think that there is a value with just your own voice and your own distribution that can be much better. And I think that's I've definitely learned a lot more the value of that, because I did you're correct, I did just start off just making sure I could be mildly readable to people, and then I started seeing some inklings of the benefits, and now I just get a lot of people contact me all the time with interesting potential collaboration opportunities.
I love it. Yeah, content creation is not the easiest thing, but it's definitely a part of being able to stay relevant and just to help people understand a little bit about the side of what you're personally doing. So there's truly power in it for sure. And I think that at some point, anyone that wants to be a part of this industry is going to have to become a little bit more
Mhm.
comfortable and vulnerable with doing
Yeah.
content creation one way or the other. Last question, kind of off of a side topic, but something that I had on my mind was when you're explaining blockchain to someone new, maybe like a family member, like how do you simplify it to help them understand its potential?
Um, I like to try to stay away from technical jargon and just talk about user stories. It's like a product management thing where you just talk about how it might help them. I think the obvious ones are, if you're trying to send money around the world, going to Western Union or any of these other MoneyGram, other, remittance apps and stuff, it can be really hard, or they take a huge amount of money,
Yeah,
um, like multiple percentage space. Whereas if you use blockchain, it's trivially expensive and gets there right away. And then you just have to all you have to do is find an off-ramp provider. And like the beauty of blockchain is that mostly these are independent entities and like independent like operations. So like the sending of something on cryptocurrency is very different than the whatever your off ramp is, but they're very collaborative. Somebody else basically just solves the problem for you with blockchain because that's the beauty of an open platform. Anybody can just kind of figure out how to do it, as opposed to with MoneyGram, they just own the whole thing. So
yeah,
if there's any step in that process that is not good for you, you don't have any other options. So that's things like that. I mean, it depends on the audience. Something that exact one may resonate more or less with certain people, but that's like a pretty common one.
yeah. And back to kind of interesting things about you. So you have a college degree in economics and mathematics and master's in economics. Looking back, did you ever envision, going to school and studying those things, being able to actually be, very instrumental in your success in your current role?
Oh man, I mean, blockchain wasn't even a thing
Yeah.
back then, which is kind of hilarious. I mean, there's like some inklings that there was, cryptography and like some
Yeah.
of the pieces were around for sure, but not actually something that works. That's part of what makes Bitcoin so incredible, just coming out of and actually making it work for so long. Um, yeah, I mean, I think that, yeah, even just going into more technical roles was something that I didn't always anticipate, and then starting companies where I didn't even have mentors or whatever. I just had to figure it out live. I think that was a lot of just personal growth, and so I think at this point, it's like I'm not somebody where all the things come easy for me, even, but I
Mm.
just have a sense that if you work hard enough and you just kind of keep on going through on something, you're passionate enough about it, you can kind of get to a place that is workable. Doesn't
Yes.
necessarily mean it'll be a commercial success or anything, but you can more and more. These technologies aren't like, if you put them under the hood, they can be complex and they can have their gotchas and their complexities, but they're very rarely insurmountable. It just grit, I think, and just working hard makes up for a lot of the other intellectual challenges. And yeah, so I think that's like my main takeaway from my career is just keep on iterating, keep tinkering of things I find interesting, and things will go well
And keep going,
eventually.
keep going,
Yeah.
keep going.
It,
And
but there's ups and downs for sure. It's like the eventually part of that statement is a big one. Yeah,
and one other interesting thing too, when I was checking out your background, is that you're a patent holder as well too. So maybe let's tell folks what you have a patent in and why you believe in that.
yeah. So this is the Contra Labs, my second company. It's not blockchain related at all. It's so my co-founder. She has hearing loss, and she's a biomed from uh, uh, and so she came up with this way of uh, like doing like fitting hearing aid or configuring hearing aids essentially. And so we kind of got to talking, and her algorithm does some parts of it, and then I added a lot of the machine learning and other parts of it on top. And so that whole process is something that we patented, as yeah. And maybe obviously this isn't a hearing aid conversation, but today you kind of have to go into this clinic, and there's what's colloquially determined as the beep test.
Hmm.
So we were basically replacing that with a combination of an algorithm and machine learning and a few other things, and that's what that process patent is what
I love it. I love it. Just shows
Yeah.
you how unique the people in this industry are, which is just continuously fascinating for me. So, wrapping it up here, I just wanted to do a couple of questions, and you can give us a little short insight on this if you choose to. But this is our fun section to kind of wrap it up called bearish or bullish. And these are obviously things that you've talked about, Matt, so none of this should come to surprise for you. But in terms of institutional adoption, are you bearish or bullish?
Bullish. How much do I want to? I actually think that things start off as self-sovereignty, and so people thought it was the individual. But I think businesses actually stand a lot to gain by not having intermediaries, and just they're very cost sensitive and willing to go through whatever challenges of a new industry and regulatory, all that stuff, because they have to do that in some levels anyway because they're so big. So actually, I'm pretty bullish on them helping to lead the way.
Nice. Next, cross-platform integrations, bearish or bullish?
A little bit bearish most of the time. So I think anytime you do something that, it depends on what kind of platform you talk about. I think the cross-platform of like web, mobile, completely bullish. I think that's one of the aha moments of crypto. I think going across, Solana, Alt L1, L2s, whatever. I think I'm just doing that you need to have a product reason. I think some people just go around grant seeking and all things that don't necessarily add to your product. So I think that I'm pretty bearish on, because typically that's more of a distraction, than it is a benefit.
And last one is, and you talked about this a little bit earlier, but deepen, bearish or bullish?
Super bullish. I think that one is, at the very least, I don't know, not all of them are going to be commercial successes, but I am very bearish that it is a very viable thing to work on that is hard to do with traditional Rails. There's a fundamental, couple cent cost to everything, even the credit cards and most transfers. So having a much more efficient Rail that other people can build on top of, so these deepins you can start stacking together work in a permissionless way. I think that type of collaboration is very competitive with other Web2 offering, typical traditional offerings. And so very, very bullish.
I love it. Well, we're over time here. I didn't get to nearly as many questions as I thought we'd get to, but this has been an exciting conversation. I'm so grateful for you sharing your insights, and I believe that the folks in our audience also enjoyed all of the knowledge that you've been able to share with us today. Hopefully people came away with a better understanding of Solana Foundation and what it's all about, and will continue to do their own research and learn a little bit more about some of the awesome things that you are working on and building. So thank you, Matt. What's the best way for folks to get in touch with you and just to kind of follow what's going on or coming down the pipeline with Solana?
I'm one of the weird people in crypto where LinkedIn is actually my main place.
Hey, I'm like you,
that I
man. We're not that weird.
Yeah. Kindred spirits. I think. I do a little bit on Twitter. Catch me on GitHub. I think. But honestly, just here, my DMs, I check them pretty frequently on LinkedIn. It's a pretty consolidated place for me.
Nice. Nice, wonderful. Well, Matt, thank you once again, folks. For everyone that joined, there's a million things that you could be doing on this Monday, but you chose to start off your week with us. So, Gabrielle, we have Trisha, Renee, Blue, Dorothy, Douglas, Richard, James, and some other folks here. We have David, Michael, Jamar, Maria, Shabish, Abdulam, Norel, Gloria, and we have some others that are here. I really appreciate you all for joining. Stay safe. Be continuously curious about all the awesome things in this space, and we'll be back this Friday for another conversation as well here on Just Shilling, and we'll be getting a short clip of the conversation and a little bit of a recap what we talked about here today, but also stay tuned for the full video. And also, if you're not following us or checking out all of the videos that we have a lot on our YouTube channel, so check that out. Stay tuned for more, and have a lovely rest of y'all day, folks. Take care. Bye.